Hi Year 7, in this question we read that 4 students each read a portion of the same English novel over 2 nights for homework. The table shows what fraction of the book was read on each of the 2 nights. And here we have this table where we've got 4 students, Mikhail, Jim, Vesna and Juliet. And we're told what fraction of the book they read on the first night and the second night. For Vesna, we have a little asterisk, which tells us that Vesna woke up early on the third morning and read another 1/6 of the novel before leaving for school. So that's all the information, and then we're told the question, or what we're being asked to do, is to place the students in order from least to most, according to what fraction of the book they had read by their next English lesson. So basically this question needs us to do 2 things. It needs us to add up fractions, and then it needs us to compare fractions. And the thing we need to do in order to be able to do both of those things is to find a common denominator for all of these fractions. Because to be able to add up fractions with different denominators, it's very helpful if we find a common denominator. And then in order to compare fractions that may have different denominators, it's also helpful to find a common denominator, because then all you have to do is compare the numerators. So in order to find a denominator that can be common to all of these fractions, we need to find the lowest common multiple, or LCM for short, of all of the denominators. So here are the different denominators that we're dealing with: 5, 4, 2, 10, another 4, another 5, a 12, and a 20. So we need to find the LCM of those denominators. Now, in doing this, it's actually helpful to write the different numbers that we're trying to get the lowest common multiple of from largest to smallest. So here what we really need to do is think about the multiples of 20. What are they? And then the next highest number is 12. The multiples of 12, what are they? The multiples of 10. So we've done 20, 12, 10. Next we would be looking at, we can't forget about this 6 here. So we'd need the multiples of 6 as well. So we've thought about that. The multiples of 5. That deals with the 5s. The multiples of 4. And that deals with the 4s. And then finally the multiples of 2. So the idea behind finding the lowest common multiple is, if we think about what are the multiples of all these numbers, we then examine those to see which is the first multiple that is common to all of them. So for 20, the multiples of 20 are 20, 40, 60, 80, and so on. For 12, the multiples of 12 are 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, and I can stop there because notice we've had our first common multiple, 60. And that is being the first common multiple, therefore it's also the lowest common multiple of the 2 biggest numbers. So what that means is, for all the smaller numbers, their first common multiple must also be, hopefully, this number 60. If each of these numbers have 60 as their multiple, we know it must be the smallest. So just for the sake of thoroughness, let's work through. So for 10, the multiples of 10 are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. So there we have our 60. So we know the lowest common multiple still stands at 60. For 6, we would go 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, and 60, and then we can stop there because we have our lowest common multiple. Undo that. We have our lowest common multiple. For 5, it would be 5, 10, 15, 20.
A few moments later.
55, and then 60, and then we stop there because we've got our lowest common multiple. I might just make a bit more space here because we might need a bit more room to write the multiples of 4 and 2. For 4 we'll have 4, 8, 12, 16,
3 days later,
56, and then 60, so we stop there. And then finally for 2, again, I'll do this for completeness. By this point you really wouldn't have to. You could probably convince yourself that you know 2 times 30 is 60, but I'll just work through it anyway. We have 2, 4, 6, 8,
1 eternity later,
58, and then 60. So they're all the multiples of 2 up to 60. So again, we can see quite clearly that all of these numbers have in common the multiple of 60, and that is the lowest common multiple across all of them. Some of these other numbers may have other multiples that are common. So for example, 2 and 4 have a lower common multiple of 4, but in terms of what is common to all of these numbers, the lowest one of those is 60, and that's why, as I mentioned earlier, it can be helpful to work from the highest numbers down to the smallest, because then you can pretty quickly identify what is likely to be the lowest common multiple of everything, and then kind of just use your knowledge of your times tables to quickly verify. So here we see that 60 is the third multiple of 20, 60 is the fifth multiple of 12, because 12 times 5 is 60, so I'll just write that a bit neater. 60 is the sixth multiple of 10, it's the 10th multiple of 6, it's the 20th multiple of 5, because 5 times 20 would be 60. For number 4, it would be the 15th multiple. 4 times 15 is 60. And then for 2, it would be the 30th multiple. 2 times 30 is 60. So now that we've got the lowest common multiple, we can start to work through the details of this question. So what I'll do is, for each of the 4 students, we'll add up their fractions, and then we'll be able to see, once we've got them all with a common denominator, we'll be able to place them in order, which is ultimately what the question wants us to do. It wants us to order these fractions. So we'll start with Mikhail. So for Mikhail, how much did they read of the book? Well, they read 2 over 5 plus 1 over 4 of the book. And what we really want to do is write that as a fraction over 60 plus another fraction over 60. So we have to ask ourselves, 5 times what is 60? Well, 60 is the 20th. Is that right? No, that doesn't sound right. 5 times 12. I don't know where I got 20 from. I think I doubled 10. I don't know why I did that. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's the 12th multiple of 5. So 5 times 12 is how we get to 60. So if we're going to multiply the denominator by 12, we have to multiply the numerator by 12. And 2 times 12 is 24. Now, for 4 is the 15th multiple of the 15th multiple of 4 is how we get to 60. So if I'm going to multiply the denominator by 4, I have to multiply by 15. I have to multiply the numerator by 15. 1 times 15 is 15. So now that we've got common denominators, we simply add up the numerators. So 24 plus 15 is 39. So Mikhail read 39 out of 60 as a fraction of the book. So that's Mikhail. Next we'll do Jim. So Jim, we're told the amount that Jim read was a half plus a tenth. So 1 over 2 plus 1 over 10. 1 over 2 plus 1 over 10. Again, we want that as something over 60 plus something else over 60. The way to get from 2 to 60 is we multiply by 30, so we'll have to do that to the numerator. So 1 times 30 is 30. The way we get from 10 to 60 is we multiply by 6. So we'll do that to the numerator. 1 times 6 is 6. So for Jim, we get a total of 36 out of 60 as the fraction that Jim read. Now for Vesna is slightly different because she did that extra reading in the morning. So her fractions were a quarter, a fifth, and the 1 over 6. So 1 over 4 plus 1 over 5 plus 1 over 6. That's what Vesna read. Again, like before, we want all of those fractions to be over the common denominator of 60. So we ask ourselves, what do we have to multiply each denominator by? So I think from earlier we already did 4. Yeah, 4 times 15 is how we get to 60. So we do the numerator times 15. 1 times 15 is 15. For 5 times 12 is how we get to 60. So we'll multiply the numerator by 12. 1 times 12 is 12. And then for 6 times 10 is how we get to 60. So we multiply the numerator. 1 times 10 is 10. And now we just add up all these numbers. 15 plus 12 is 27. Plus another 10 would get us 37 over 60. And finally, we need to look at Juliet, who read 7 over 12 plus 1 over 20. So Juliet equals 7 over 12 plus 1 over 20. Again, we'll put those both as fractions over this common denominator of 60. 12 times 5 gets us 60, so we'll do 7 times 5, which is 35. And then 20 times 3 gets us 60, so we'll do 1 times 3, which is 3. So 35 plus 3 gets us 38 over 60. And now we have all 4 of our fractions with the common denominator of 60. So all we have to do now is ask ourselves, we want to put them in order from least to most. So which is the smallest? 39, 36, 37, or 38? 36 would be the smallest, so Jim would get the rank of 1 in terms of putting it in order. Then after 36 would be 37, so that's Vesna. Then after 37 would be 38, and then after 38 would be 39. So they're actually, the numerators all become consecutive, 36, 37, 38, and 39 over 60. So placing them in order becomes quite easy. And again, that goes back to what I mentioned at the beginning, which is when we have a common denominator, it becomes quite easy to compare, well, firstly to add up fractions, and then secondly to compare them. If you just look at fractions like 2 on 5 and 1 on 4, or 1 on 2 and 1 on 10, and so on, it can be quite hard to go, well, what do they combine to be? If you haven't first done that step of getting the common denominator, and the way we get the common denominator is to think about the lowest common multiple. So hopefully now that I've worked through all that very methodically, it makes sense what's going on, and if you were to encounter a similar question, you'd know what to do. Alright, tick boom.